30 seconds. There you go. Agenda.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Cicero Regular Town Board Meeting, Wednesday, October 26, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to note the two exits in the back and one in the front, right-hand corner over here, your left. And if you would, please silence your cell phones. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing and remember Loomis Party was an integral part of our community. Thank you. We will start with Counselor White and approvals of our abstracts.
We got
I'm sorry. Anybody wish to speak on behalf of any of the agenda items previous to any of the
public hearings.
public input
Public hearings.
or it's, if you want to speak on behalf of the public hearing, we're going to open the public hearing back up. Okay, go ahead.
Tim Murphy, Knoll Road. The county executive said the other day that they wanted to have these towns loosen their density restrictions for developers. I don't think that's a very good idea at all. You guys are going to take a heck of a lot of development out of town, people coming in to build. So I would keep your zoning restrictive so you got a handle on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. Counselor White.
Approval of abstracts. Move for the adoption of a resolution approving abstract numbers 41 dated 10/11/22 and number 42 dated 10/17/22.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Those who vote no or abstain, passed.
Budget modifications and transfers. The Cicero Town Board approves the budget modifications and transfers as presented.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Those who vote no or abstain, passed. Number 5, public hearing for Metro North Planned Unit Development located at 8010 and 8016 Burton Road. Tax map numbers 44-03-01.1 and 44-03-12.2. And we'll have a continuation of our public hearing. And time is 6:33, Tracy.
Good evening, Brian Bouchard with CHA Consulting, project engineer working on behalf of Gabblerai Development, developer and applicant for the zone change application. And also with me is Tim Haskins from the development team. If you could just start on the overall site plan for the benefit of either the board members or the public that weren't here at the last meeting, I'll give a condensed version of the project overview and then get into some of the specific changes that were made to the plans since the last meeting. Do you still have, Mr. Supervisor, the overall plan that has both projects and the aerial on it? Development plans, yep. Would probably be the second page is better because it has the aerial backdrop and would give the residents a little bit of orientation related to the surrounding area. So while you're pulling, yeah, there we go, perfect. Get my pointer out. So just a general overview. This is a 8016 Brewerton Road. It's 35 acres directly behind the existing auto dealership. And just to describe the process and exactly what we're requesting, this is a zone change from regional commercial to what we're requesting, which is a residential use in a planned unit development. We talked about this a little bit and wanted to understand that the main takeaway from this is truly that This is a zoning request to reduce the intensity of what could potentially be developed on this property. RC zoning, regional commercial zoning, is specifically identified within the town's zoning ordinance, is designed to provide for large-scale commercial enterprises which draw on a market county-wide and are characterized by their high traffic generation. And essentially what we're requesting is a much less intense use associated with residential development. We worked with, as I mentioned before, the planning board throughout the course of 2 years and provided a multitude of studies and analysis relating to this change in use and the less intense residential property that we're requesting, including a traffic study. We actually looked at what this project in relationship to the residential use would look like compared to what could potentially be built there as a commercial use, including a big box store, which is allowed, which obviously you see sort of both with Wegmans and Walmart and Target up and down the street. Even some of the smaller uses, right? Like a small half-acre piece that has a very intense impact, like a Chick-fil-A or the new Popeyes, has much more traffic than would be even generated on the 35 acres for residential use. We also looked at the Route 11 corridor study that was performed by Syracuse Metropolitan Transportation Council. Included a variety of corridors throughout the county, but specifically looked at this area as a town center needing residential development, and a number of other things with changes to the plans and sewer studies. What's different about this is that we are requesting a less intense use. And that's a huge takeaway when you talk about Mr. Murphy's comment about development intensity and why we need housing, but where's the most appropriate spot for it? There's very few areas in the town, with exception of these 3 parcels, essentially Wegmans, Walmart, and the auto dealership, where somebody may come to you and say, change the zoning from something more intense to something less intense. A lot of the other developers that you'll see in probably the next coming years are going to be looking at areas out in the town of Clay and town of Cicero along Route 31, which are vacant agricultural districts. And they're going to be looking at an upzoning, essentially taking that vacant piece of land out in a more rural area that's not commercially developed, and looking to increase the intensity and the use of that area. So it is unique, and it certainly would not set a precedent within the town as a whole. To take you through just the generics of the site plan, as we talked about last time, this is Route 11. This is the auto dealership. This is the Fairview Ave neighborhood. And this is the 35 acres that we're proposing the residential development on. The project would be built in 2 phases. So the southerly portion is a multifamily project consisting of 150 units, and that would be the first phase. It would be constructed first. Once the first phase is fully constructed and leased and occupied, the second phase is a senior living phase that would be to the north of the main access road, which is also directly adjacent to Gary Ave in the Fairview neighborhood. So this would be a second phase commencing only at the point when the multifamily project is built a few years from now. We talked about access. Generally speaking, we did perform a traffic study. This was a very comprehensive traffic study. We did not come up with the scope of it. New York State DOT gave us the scope, and that scope included 14 intersections all the way from Copper Top down at Bear Road, all the way through to Stevens Drive. There was 14 intersections analyzed, both signalized and unsignalized. Part of our traffic mitigation, which I'll talk about in a second, is to signalize this intersection. So that traffic incoming and ingress and egress could be handled by the traffic signal. We also talked about specifically a cross connection from Fairview neighborhood to provide access to that signal. And we did talk about, this is truly something that we would lean on the town to decide based on public comment. It could be built now, it could be built restricted for an out access only, it could be a fire access. Or because the town would have the ability to do it in the future, it could be built at some point in the future as well, because the town has an easement there. We take no position on it because obviously there are benefits to it, right? We talked about the ability for those residents to use that signal and trying to mitigate the ability for other people to leave, which would seemingly be less convenient, but we're open to options there. Also, north and south. We've provided the town an easement to control cross access in the future to whatever might be developed behind the Wegmans parcel, which is owned by Wide Waters. So this is a mechanism where obviously we don't control those properties either to the north or the south, which we talked about, but we have the ability to give the town an access easement such that when either Walmart or Wide Waters comes to this board or the town for a request, that the town would have the ability to request a reciprocal easement and make those necessary connections in an appropriate spot. So multifamily consisting of 150 units, phase one, we have 128 units. We've talked about up to 150 units, the ability to support this site for the senior project. And, you know, some of the other things that we looked at were trip generation, specifically relating to traffic. And when we did this comparison, which we've submitted to the board, it showed a significant reduction in the impacts that would be associated with this project, right? If this was developed as a commercial property, peak trips per hour are upwards of 400 to 500 during the PM peaks, either during the weekdays or Saturday peaks. So when you look at 400 to 500 cars coming and going from a commercial development is significantly different than the 80 trips per hour that a residential development would see. And it's also a different type of use where it's offset in the hours from commercial development versus the residential development. The SMTC corridor study outlined this corridor very specifically and had sketches and ideas of what should be developed in the rear parcels. Trying to steer clear again of heavy impacts from commercial. That SMTC traffic study specifically recommended that this area transition more to a lighter residential use. It showed other things like hotels and mixed use offices, but included a variety of apartments, upwards of 500 on this parcel, which obviously we know we can't support because of other things, and including like the wetland areas and other things like that that they didn't consider. But this study specifically identified that zoning modifications may be necessary to facilitate a mix of uses, and that the town will need to work with developers to bring this style of development to fruition. If you could go to the new figure, Mr. Supervisor, with the parking. One of the things that we talked a lot about with the planning board was overall parking counts, and really the disconnect here was that it was the intention all along for the development to provide garage units for every unit. And the discussion was whether or not the garage units should count toward the parking count. And if you weren't to count them, there's a perception that obviously with just the driveways and the surface parking, you know, having 150 garages is substantial, but if you take them away from the parking count, the parking would seem a little bit light. So what we have looked at here is a balance between still having enough snow storage area, but also the ability to provide more surface parking. This adds 60 spaces. And what I'll do is get into a little bit of the actual numbers here, because I think this is important. The senior section is compliant with the planning board's recommendations, 1.5 spaces per unit. So we're providing 1.6 spaces per unit up there. There's 128 units. We have 213 spaces. There's a lot more surface parking because there are not garages for every senior building, right? It's a multi-story senior building. So a lot of the parking is already on the surface. So what I'll focus on is the numbers related to the multifamily. So we have 150 units proposed on the multifamily. That's a little bit hard to analyze with parking because the units are mixed between 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. So a more appropriate number would be to look at the number of beds. So out of 150 units on the multifamily, we have 278 beds. Our current parking count is 352. So we exceed the number of physical beds that are in the project. From 278, we're providing 352, but that's including the garages. So if you take the garages away, there's only 202 surface parking spaces and driveway spaces. So 278 beds, we have 202 parking spaces. And what we've been able to do here in kind of trying to balance, obviously adding more parking takes away things like green space and snow storage, but adding in appropriate areas, we're able to add 60 spaces. So we're nearly even with the bed count here, 278 beds with 262 spaces, not including the garage, but realizing that each unit has a garage. The total is 412 spaces with the garage. So even if you were to say that half the garages aren't parked in or not being used, hopefully we find that this is sort of a compromise between what we believe was already sufficient parking and adding enough parking to the surface there. We also, obviously at the last public hearing, there was a lot of comments, so I'd like to address some of them. There was a lot of people here from the Sutton neighborhood, right? And I think obviously they were publicly noticed because of the public hearing, and they were concerned about, this development and what the impacts would be. And just to be clear, this development is way further north than the Wide Waters parcel. That's a completely separate parcel. It is vacant land, but we have no relationship with that developer. So at least at this time, we can say this project has no impact to those houses that are along Sutton with respect to either access roads or development behind there. And I think that's important to point out. The other substantive comment that we wanted to address specifically was a comment about landscape buffering, right? So if you could go to the landscape figure. We took the last few weeks to develop a more pointed plan here. So this is Fairview. So north in this plan is pointed to the right-hand side of the page. So Walmart is to the right-hand side of the page here. To the south is the senior portion, the second phase of the project. This is the existing Fairview Ave that touches Gary Ave. This 60-foot right-of-way is between the first residential houses that are opposing it and the property line that we share with that town right-of-way. There's about 30 feet between the edge of pavement and the proposed cross-access road. And we don't control the town's right-of-way, but when you drive out there, there is substantial vegetation between that edge of pavement and the property line. There's a mix of sort of scrubby brush and some other things. It's just kind of overgrown as in being wild. So obviously, that little buffer is kind of a layer that wouldn't be touched. When we looked at the area that's just behind the property line between the driveway and the property line, the same thing exists. It's basically a lot of scrub brush. There are a few mature trees that we would selectively save to keep their canopies where they wouldn't be disturbed and could survive. But a lot of this brush is going to lose its leaves, obviously, in the next few weeks here. And when you look at the ability to put in the access road, visibility will be increased, obviously. So we'd look to take out some of that wild type brush. And what we've done is created an evergreen planting buffer within that 16 feet that we have. This is a mix of evergreens that obviously keep their leaves more throughout the winter time. And there's also a few larger canopy trees that would mature over time. So there's sort of two layers here before the access road. On the other side of the access road starts, our pavement edge, and there's a small green strip for snow, and then a sidewalk that connects along the roadway. And within that, we would plant typical street trees, deciduous street trees that'll mature into canopies as well. Behind the sidewalk, we also have another row of cedars, and then we've added a 6-foot fence as well. So there's multiple layers here, and then just understanding too that on the other side of the fence are 2-story residential townhomes. So very much similar to a residential house, right? Pitched roof, asphalt shingles, siding. So the look of it is much different than maybe buffering of a commercial project. It's almost buffering in and of itself, where we have these layers, the fencing, the 2-story townhomes, and then further into the project is the 3-story typical apartment building for the seniors. Also important to note that this is the second phase, but the access road and landscaping would be built as part of the first phase. So when you look at what we would do for site work entering the project, this would be constructed first, it would be planted. We would construct the rest of the multifamily project, and this landscaping would have an opportunity, obviously, to grow within the few years that it takes to even start the project. So this would be completed as part of phase 1, even though the area behind it would be left wooded until the completion of the project. So with that, we've tried to address the parking as best we can within the confines of the development. We've definitely listened to some of the more substantive comments with respect to the buffering and adjacency to the residential neighborhood. And if there's any other specific questions that I should go back through related to the traffic study or the project as a whole, I'd be willing to do it. But turn it back over to the board, and either your choice to hear from maybe residents that didn't have a chance to speak last time, or possibly board members that have new questions today.
Thank you. Anyone?
Just real quick, is the fence continuous or are there breaks in it?
So the fence would be continuous all the way from this driveway. There is a break in it, obviously. So there's a break here, but the fence would cover this townhome that goes right up to the Walmart property line. And then the fence would continue all the way along to the main access road that comes in off of Route 11.
Made of the fence. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to.
Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was broken somewhat. It's folded.
Yeah, there's a dog park and a community garden, so there would be gates in the fence.
Sorry.
So between the townhomes, there's a community garden and a dog park, and they would have gates to go out to the sidewalk. Fencing material.
Yeah.
We labeled as a stockade fence. It could either be a wood stockade fence, or it could be something, more matching, maybe the siding, like a vinyl fence. I don't think there's any particular, nothing that we're sold on. I think either one would be fine. If vinyl has more longevity, or if the wood look is more natural, we'd be willing to do either.
And where was the dog park to be located?
So if you see the building footprints that are shaded out here, there's the townhome building here, and there's a townhome building here. And in between them is a dog park and a community garden in the green space that exists between those two. So behind the fence.
Phase 2 of the project, right?
Phase 2 of the project, correct. So about, 2 to 3 years after the potential start of the multifamily construction.
Anyone else? No. Thank you very much. We'll invite the public up. If somebody would like to speak, raise your hand and I'll call you up. Gentleman in the back on the left, way in the back, come on up. State your name and address as before.
Thank you for letting me speak. Tim Murphy, Knoll Road. I have a couple paragraphs here. Micron is coming, as we all know. The developers and contractors are circling. We can accommodate some development, but let us be smart about it. The town should set the rules, not the developers. We need to eliminate PUDs and revert back to zoning codes. This protects existing zoners with buffering, landscaping, congested buildings, and setbacks. If you have a single family house, do you really want 3 or 4 story built 10 feet high behind your house looking down upon you? We need to be smart about it. Give adequate buffering between projects. Develop, yes, but existing codes and insist upon them. Get rid of the laxness of PUDs. Developers should have their own funding streams and not rely on the town to provide tax breaks. With anticipated jump of the 2% tax cap on property taxes, now is not the time to give tax breaks to developers. If we put up with increased road congestion, noise, honking of cars in parking lots, flooding due to impervious surfaces, paving, etc., we should not have to pay for newcomers. Newcomers are welcome, but they must assimilate into existing communities. Also, we have a noise ordinance. Developers must not ignore this. Also, Syracuse Metropolitan Transportation Council did the traffic study for the project behind Echo Park. Why didn't the state DOT do the study? Thank you for your time and attention to this matter. I have a quick question. Did they get a tax break?
Don't believe so. No,
Did you guys get a tax break?
no tax break from us.
Ah, cool. Walmart did for 10 years. We went through that already. One other thing, the impervious surfaces with the wetland, nobody said anything about the seeker, that's state environmental quality review. I haven't heard a peep about it.
We're not there yet.
You're not there yet?
Not there yet.
Ah, cool. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful evening.
Before we have anyone else come up, I'll have Counselor Merzio read a letter from one of the residents.
Yeah, we had a resident who submitted a letter that couldn't be here tonight. To whom this may concern, safety, safety, safety. Safety should always be considered first. Is it really best for the residents in the new development or the residents in the developed neighborhood? The residents of Cicero traveling on Route 11. There will even be more traffic once Micron starts. This is why it's so important to have comprehensive planning to be ready for the gradual growth that will occur. And 2 years is a very short time to be ready. Please approach planning carefully and be thoughtful. Sincerely, Faye Gregory. So I just wanted to read that into the record. You can give it to Ms. Carlson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Merzio. Anyone else? I saw a hand up. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Catherine Bottalato, and I live at 5824 Lincoln Ave, which I'm one of the houses that butts up to Gary Ave. One of the two. My concern last week, two questions that I've asked, and one of them I see where they've added the trees, so supposedly I'm not going to see anything. But now I'm seeing that they're saying they're going to put a fence on the other side of the road. Why wouldn't they put it on my side of the road so I don't have to watch the cars and everything else going by? Why is it on their side of the road, but not blocking me from all that traffic that's going to go through, supposedly? Secondly, there's only 30 houses in our little loop, and we have one way in and one way out. And if anybody's been around there, you know what it's like trying to get in and out of there, especially like Christmas time, but now it's like that all the time. You're going to have, what do you have? 300, 400, 500 people that you're going to be putting in this new development, and they have one way in and one way out. I don't get it. We can barely get in and out. Policemen, fire trucks. I mean, we had the blowdown when, you know, all the trees came down. My son had to ride his bike because we couldn't get out of our road. There was no way to get out with a car. Now you're talking about putting all these people in there, and the only way I see out is by where Echo is at the light. So now you're talking about 500 people with one way in and one way out. So what are the chances they aren't going to decide they got to come right through our street somehow? Because I don't see how that's safety. And you're talking about seniors, and put a senior home in there with one way in and one way out. And thirdly, I still haven't heard how you're getting rid of all the water that goes from all our houses down into the runoff every spring. I mean, I have ducks in my backyard that come there every year because I have so much water that backs up in my backyard from the last few developments we've had. Now that takes a month to drain all the way over there. So they're going to put, I mean, we have a ditch over there. So what are they going to leave the ditch and the brush? And then how far are they building up? Are they building up to the same height as my land? Because if they're building up to the same height as my land, where's the water going to go? How are you going to get all the water out of our neighborhood that goes into there that's not going to flood all them out? Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up, sir.
Hello, everyone. My name's Anthony Corallo. I live at 5827 Lincoln Ave. This house right there. So it's going to be very close to my home. I do appreciate the, addressing of some privacy. I would like, if this does go through, which I hope it doesn't, I'd like them to put some sort of fence on this side, give us some coverage. Also the drainage, I could see plows pushing snow, and now all of a sudden my yard's going to be the wet spot right here. The buildings that you have over here, they are a lot larger than these houses in a neighborhood, which are pretty small. Another concern I had, can you pull up the other map where it shows the construction of both plans, phase 1 and phase 2?
That one or the other one?
Both. I want to do it where it shows the access road
Yeah.
that and the light out in front of Eco, please. All right, so I see here where they would like to put something possibly for an exit out. I have concerns of when can you put that other one back, please? Sorry about.
Tried to make it bigger. I apologize.
Okay. Well, I can see it now that, can you just go up to this one right here?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. I could see it when,
It'll go. It'll go.
okay.
There you go.
They could see a red light up here. What are they gonna do? They're gonna be hard on the gas and try to come out our way this way. Same thing. They're gonna be going on Route 11. They're gonna see a red light here. They're gonna beeline in the neighborhood and cut in this way. There's gonna be no way to really enforce it. the neighbors are gonna be dealing with it. Luckily, I'm down here, so I'm not as close to it, but I could see potential problems with that. It's already super busy right there where that light's looking to go. There's just enough room right now without the extra residents that we can actually function. And I'm just concerned it's gonna be like a parking lot out there with that extra light. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, with that being said, oh, you want to speak again? Go ahead.
I could just maybe respond to a couple of them I think would be appropriate. Some of the comments related to zoning, again, if you were to compare what the allowable building height is in a regional commercial, it allows a 4-story hotel. The footprints and the lot coverage and the setbacks are all much more intense than what we have provided for the residential project. So much so that, based on a 60-foot building height, we were proposing these to be 2-story townhomes and the senior building to originally be a 4-story apartment for senior living. And one of the things that we did throughout the course of the planning board discussion is specifically reduce that building to 3 stories so that there's a step between the single family homes, the 2-story townhomes, and then providing a maximum of 3 stories for a residential building because of its location next to the residential. The other comment about seeker with respect to like our stormwater pollution prevention plan and the wetlands, there is a wetland delineation study that's been prepared for the site and approved by the Army Corps of Engineers. So these are Army Corps of Engineer wetlands. We do have no wetland impacts. We have stormwater management completely in line with the town as an MS4, the state guidelines. So there's stormwater management to collect all of the impervious spaces, treat and manage them appropriately within their own stormwater management basins and discharge them at rates that don't equal anything greater than the proposed condition. I do fully understand that there probably is offsite drainage. So the project, and I went out to try and find it. We don't have survey of that catch basin, but I can see topography wise that there's probably a spot where drainage from that Gary Ave comes through and essentially gets to the lower spot, which is the wetland out back. So we wouldn't be taking that into the project specifically, but I did look at our grading plans to make sure that we could take care of that drainage and ensure that there's a route to get that drainage from that roadway out to the lower spots, which is the wetland areas out back. The fence on Gary Ave. So I guess our position was that we didn't want to disturb more of the area that's on the other side of the property line, but I think that's perfectly acceptable. And I'm sure I didn't even talk to Tim about it, but I mean, that's something that we'd be willing to do, right? It makes sense. Maybe that actually exists even on the town's property, kind of along that roadway so that there's a solid fence, but then this vegetation can grow kind of behind it. And then there's another fence on the other side of the access road. So certainly no issues with that. And then regarding just the cross access, I think 2 people mentioned the fence, but regarding the cross access, again, if it's not something that the town wants to put in, that's fine. There's the ability to put it in later. There's an obvious benefit for those people to leave, as was suggested. They only have one way in and one way out, and the way in and out causes left turns to have to cross traffic. So the benefits and the cost is something that we all have to weigh. And is there more benefit to having 2 ways in and out of the Fairview Lincoln neighborhood? In case there is an accident, at Lincoln Avenue, they have the ability to get out. But coming up with some type of signage and things that should hopefully deter people. I don't think it's 100%. You put a stop sign anywhere in the middle of the town or, Village of North Syracuse, and somebody's going to run the stop sign anyway, right? So maybe a little bit of an enforcement issue. But certainly you can see that if you had to take a left turn through to get through this residential neighborhood, it's going to be a harder turning movement than waiting at the turn signal. So the potential is definitely there. I'm not discounting that, but it's sort of the costs and benefits and which one's greater that we'd certainly like your input on and can accommodate it either way. So.
Thank you. Anyone else? This time I'd like to close the public hearing, and it's 7:04. Tracy? Town board will review all the public comments and developers' information in this proposed project will continue on November 9th, 2022 at town board meeting, at which time we will make our decision. Thank you all. Next, number 6.
Right, we did have a public hearing that we had set on at the September 28th meeting for tonight. However, the required posting did not occur, so I move the adoption of a resolution to schedule a public hearing for November 9th, 2022 at 6:30 PM, Cicero Town Hall, 8236 Brewerton Road, Cicero, to consider amendments to chapter 210 of the town code.
Second.
Discussion?
So the two things we're going to be doing primarily in this, one is to clarify the already existing prohibition in the town code on short-term rentals such as Airbnb in certain districts. Also to create a new district for tier 3 solar energy systems. So anyone who wants to put a tier 3 solar energy system in the town, in addition to the permit they already have to apply for, will also have to apply for a zone change. These large arrays, I think most of us have seen the one in Northern Boulevard. We want to have a little bit more control over where they go. And so we'll be creating a new district known as commercial solar. That is the primary purpose of those amendments, and we will be doing that on the 9th.
No one else? All in favor?
Aye.
Vote no or abstain? Passed.
Set a public hearing to consider the 2023 Town of Cicero preliminary budget. The Town of Cicero has established a preliminary budget for 2023. Now therefore be it resolved, the town board sets a public hearing for November 9th, 2022 at 6:30 PM at the Cicero Town Hall, 8236 Brewerton Road, Cicero, New York, to consider the 2023 preliminary budget, including special districts, fire protection districts.
Anyone got a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Oh, whoa. Go ahead.
Can I please make sure that, just make mention that a budget workshop was done on Monday, October 17th, and that all of, or if any, changes will be made, and the comptroller will put the preliminary budget together, file it in the office, because it doesn't have to be included in the public hearing notice that I have to publish in the paper, therefore, after you've said it. So I just wanted to make mention that it'll be filed in the town clerk's office after the comptroller gives it to us and put on the website for public view. And I just wanted to make mention so that the public would understand that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Anyone else? All in favor?
Oh,
No, what do you got? What's the latest date we can have this meeting, Tracy? Public hearing.
The Thursday after the election, day of election.
Thursday after, before Thursday after the election?
The Thursday after the election is when the final budget should be approved. There is an extension on there, but
Sure, go ahead. We'll make a,
I move the adoption resolution to set a special town board meeting on Friday, November 4th, 2022 at 6:30 PM to consider the 2023 Town of Cicero preliminary budget.
second.
Well, hold on a second. We need to pull that last.
Yeah.
rescind your,
I rescind my second.
So I just want to, so we're going to move this up
we're gonna move it up.
sooner.
We have several things going on this date and time, so we kind of want to not make it so
Got it.
long.
So then I will rescind my motion then.
Yeah, I apologize, and I will
No problem.
now. Why don't you make it for the special town board meeting on the?
No, it's, you got it, John.
Move the adopted resolution to hold a special town board meeting on Friday, November 4th, 2023 at 6:30 PM at the Cicero Town Hall to consider the 2023 Town of Cicero preliminary budget.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those who vote no or abstain, passed.
To include special districts and fire departments,
To-
you're going to have
to-
those at
To
that.
include all. of
Yes,
them.
yes.
Thank you. Duly noted.
Resolved that the town board sets a public hearing for Wednesday, November 9th, 2022 at 6:30 PM at Cicero Town Hall, 8236 Brewerton Road, Cicero, New York, to approve sewer petition plan and contract drawings titled Lakeshore Sewer District Contract Number 75, Bartell Road Crossing, associated with the Cianelli property, dated February 2022, revised August 16th, 2022, as prepared by Calisarino's Engineering PLLC.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Those who vote no or abstain, passed.
Move the adopted resolution accepting the donation of $2,500 from Strategic Support Solutions for the Police Department's Community Policing Program. This will be placed in budget line B312052, Community Policing Materials.
Second.
Discussion. Not sure where this came from. I wish the chief was here. But do you know anything about this?
I do not.
It looks like a $2,500 donation, which is great. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
If you vote no or abstain, passed.
Move the adopted resolution approving the Cicero Town Clerk to authorizing, the Cicero Town Clerk to submit a request for bids for the cleaning of the Cicero Police Department located at 6200 State Route 31, Cicero, New York, in the Post Standard.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
If you vote no or abstain, passed.
Cicero Highway Sander chains for Sanders. Move for the adoption of a resolution approving the expenditure of $6,120 to purchase Sanders spreader chains from Steel Sales, Inc., budget code DB 513055.
Second.
Discussion. Getting ready for winter? All in favor?
Aye.
If you vote no or abstain, passed.
Cicero Highway Replacement Platform to truck number 15. Move for the adoption of a resolution approving the expenditure of $9,759.95 to convert truck number 15 into a flatbed, removing existing non-repairable dump bed with new platform body to be installed by Boondocker Equipment, Inc., budget code DB 513055.
Second.
Discussion. Chris, what's this truck? What are we doing to this?
The dump box frame is cracked and rotted beyond repair.
Okay.
The whole scissor lift is shot.
So you're gonna put a flatbed on it? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Those who vote no or abstain, passed. Enhancements to the Plank Road parking lot. Move for the adoption of resolution approving work to widen, square out, and level parking areas at Plank Road Park at the cost not to exceed $50,000. A lot of the work will be done in-house by our highway department. $5,000 coded to A 7110459 CS and up to $45,000 used from ARPA funds.
Second.
Now discussion. I want to thank our highway department for the willingness to do this project. This is why we're trying to work together and make things happen. We probably saved, how much, Chris? 100,000, I'd say. Okay, to do this project. Much needed. I know Counselor Carp has some children up there. I know many of you probably had children up at that park on a Saturday. Do you want to speak on behalf of that, John, a little bit?
I would just comment, I mean, the first time I went there on a Saturday for my daughter's soccer game, I texted you and said, you got to see this because of the way the parking was. The lot is uneven. It's not marked.
It was just really unsafe because you'd have two cars parked like this, but because there were no lines, the next cars would be parked like this, and you'd have three parked in a row. So people were boxed in. You come around the corner, trying to find a spot, and you don't know if you're going to have a car there or people there. Really, it's unsafe. Fortunately, we did get the VIPs over there. The VIPs were fantastic and really helped with traffic control and parking control. But bottom line is park gets an amazing amount of use on weekends during the summer because of all the soccer fields and the Cicero Youth Soccer League. And so these parking improvements are sorely needed, really, so we can accommodate people. People were parking
On the road.
in the grass, the whole time. And then when it had rained, they left ruts. This is something we definitely need.
And when I worked the road, there were people parked up and down the road on
Mhm.
a little small 2-lane road. So this is much needed. We're also looking to take the existing one drive that goes in the center of it, and we want to expand a in and an out on each end of it. This way it'll allow people to have more access into the parking lot and drive around instead of all bottlenecking in one place. So this is a collaboration with the highway, with Bill Alley and Teresa over here to figure out what's best for the park.
And
We
this-
wanted to make sure we did it one time. We want to make sure we widen it enough and do it right. So we don't have to do this 20 years down the road again.
And this is the same spot we want to put pickleball.
The pickleball court would be on the other side of the parking lot. This is the big side where the soccer, correct.
But it
It's
would
the
still
same
help.
park, right.
Yeah.
And the ultimate goal in looking at some of this would be maybe to connect the two parking lots down the road. So we maybe get a pipe and put it in to drive through, but let's get this done first. They're working on it as we speak, and hopefully we'll be done with this by, I'd say, next week, because after next week, they will be putting the sanders on the truck. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Anyone
Can I
else?
just add one thing?
Pardon me. Go ahead.
Just want to add one thing. This is going to be a huge enhancement, but I just want it also known that this does not include paving or oil and stoning it. This is just leveling it, getting more parking area, stoning and that so forth. And then we'll have to decide, in order to stripe it, we need to come up with a plan on whether we're going to pave it or oil and stone it, and do that next year.
Hmm.
We'll look at that next year.
Hmm.
This year, we'll get this part done. This will be great.
But this would have to be done anyway. We're
Correct.
going to pave. So, okay.
So this part of the project, without paving it, is saving us well over 100,000 by our highway department doing this for us. That's what I'm saying. This is great. And I appreciate all the work that everyone's doing around here and working together to make our town better.
And our comptroller has looked for money left over in paving, and there isn't any. So unless she's got it in her back pocket, which I know she doesn't. So that's why we're using ARPA funds for it.
Just to add on, Chris, I want to thank you and your team for the amount of projects that you have taken on this year that were not accounted for. I know you did work over it at Central Park and all these other things. So I really appreciate the in-house work. You're saving the taxpayers a lot of money.
Yeah, off the topic, but different road looks great. Thank you.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wish to vote no or abstain? Passed.
Replace fence at Sleeth Park. Move for the adoption of a resolution approving Arrow Fence Company, Inc., low bidder, to furnish and install 110 feet of 6-foot-high western red cedar spindle top privacy fence and post caps at Sleeth Park at a cost of $6,465, coded to Parks A7110.
Second.
Discussion? Apparently the park has a fence that's fallen down. We need to replace it. Rotting. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone wish to vote no or abstain? Passed.
Approve amendment to DOS contract C1001145. Move the adoption to approve the budget and work plan modification as an amendment to the town's contract with New York State DOS for Route 11 streetscapes. The amendment adjusts the scope to include engineering design costs.
I want to apologize. This was an added thing today Kate, do you want to speak on behalf of that? She just got this and asked if we could really put this on there because of the time sensitive of losing the grant or part of this.
No, it's just the way the state operates. So we've been working on this since last December and we finally got it. And they sent it to us yesterday and said, have it in by November 8th. So we couldn't wait till the next board meeting. So we
Okay.
had to put it
Fair
on
enough.
this fast. That's all.
Fair enough. Is there anything else that needs to be added to this
No,
resolution?
no, we've been
So-
operating under this amendment for
So this
9
is just to
months.
extend it.
No, this is just to make the document agree with what we've actually been doing and what had verbally been approved.
Okay. Anyone else? No? All in favor? Nurse vote no or abstain, passed. Before we get to the, we'll go and move on to our discussion, but before we do, I want to say that on Saturday, November 5th at noon at the New York State Fairgrounds, there's a CNY Veterans Parade. And on Sunday, November 5th, from 3 to 6:30, we have a Cicero Senior at the Cicero Senior Center. We have a spaghetti dinner to benefit the canteen.
Saturday.
Oh, it said Sunday? I apologize. Sunday, November 5th.
Saturday.
Saturday. Did I say Sunday again?
Yeah.
Okay, it's on Sunday. I said, it's on Saturday, November 5th.
It's that Sunday spaghetti dinner,
Holy
right?
cow, yes, I had a long day. I would like to also thank and send this to your mechanic, Chris, Sean Shippers. He's been on his own for a little while. He had somebody out with some illness, and I want to thank him for holding the fort down. Okay. Thank you. Tell him thank you very much. Okay. Anybody else? Anything?
Yeah, just a question on the splash pad. Are we doing any construction work prior to the winter? Has anything come in for that?
We actually got our first shipment of some of the parts a couple weeks ago, and they notified me this week that all of the equipment apparatus are being delivered. They're being shipped out on November 3rd, so we'll be getting them shortly. The contractor who's doing the install had originally told me the end of October was when he guesstimated. But he told me he has a couple other projects still in front of us that it would likely be December, early December if the weather cooperated. But we're still in the last phase of trying to hear back from Aqua on the permit to put the meter in first. And the, excuse me, the playground was also ordered. And that they gave me a timeline of coming in potentially in April. And the same installer who's doing the splash pad is going to be doing the playground. And he's hoping that to be able to tag team kind of doing both of them in the spring. So that's still our timeline. Although I can't say that Memorial Day is going to be it. I'm hoping sometime during the summer we'll be able to open it and then see how it goes. But yes, it is quite possible. We've already done some of the piping has already gone in for the water. I think something will happen this year, but hasn't started yet.
Okay, I know you talked about it in the past. I didn't know if.
And we're hoping to get the playground out of there real soon. Right now it's on county auction, Auctions International, and the auction ends on Monday. And we have a couple of people bidding on it. And I actually have someone coming out to look at it on Friday, and then it would be immediately taken out and removed. So my goal is to have that out by the end of November.
How's that looking? How's the auction looking?
Well, it jumped from like $20 up to 1,850 something. I didn't look at it today, but yesterday it was like 1,828, I think. So anything's better than nothing.
And
And
somebody can
us
use it, and somebody
having,
can enjoy it.
and us
Correct.
not having to take it out. Yeah.
And then just to update folks on the LED project that we voted on earlier this year, I talked to Kate the other day. We heard from National Grid, the parts are in. So those lighting districts that have streetlights in the developments, and I believe on Button Road, will be converted to LED starting soon. That project should be kicking off any day.
And I have one more thing. So I want to, I called my deputy supervisor today and informed him that our highway went out today and broke a dam beaver dam out in behind Leslie Ann area over there. And the water is flowing pretty well. So the people who live on Hetty Lane should have some relief over there. This isn't the answer that we're looking for totally, but it's what we're working to get things done. I had the opportunity to go out today with a drone. And if you can see our highway guys out there in the swamp, this is where I have a pointer over here right behind where Sacred Heart is, down the side of John Deere, that way, Sacred Heart Apartments. This leads over to here. They found a, well, maybe see if I can bring it back. They found a dam in this area right here where my pointer is, another beaver dam. And the water, they said, is flowing well. So in the next few days, I believe they're going to continue on with their boat and see if there are any more and see if they can get things moving. This is just a simple fix for now. We have a study going on. I don't like to wait for studies because they take a long time. I'd like to see us look at some sort of a pontoon boat with an excavator on it and go out there and clean it up and do what we have to do. That's, I think, what I'd like to see. And I think our board members would like to see that as well. They do have those units that can be rented.
Found one in Louisiana, and I am available to pick it up.
Right around Mardi Gras time.
Okay, but I just want everybody to know we're working hard behind the scenes. And Deputy Bacallo is working hard to try to fix some of these issues and work with the highway department and our town engineer and Steve. And I am glad to say that things are going our way. You want to speak on behalf of them, Michael? No?
We've been out there how many times? Yeah. But we're taking it seriously.
I was gonna
And
say, it's
So-
nice
should be
to see
taken
all this
seriously,
work
yeah.
actually happening.
So anybody else have any other discussion? We'll move on to the last part of the discussion that I had. Back a year ago, I believe it was, I wasn't on the board at the time. And the town board at that time voted on to have a comprehensive plan put in place by some volunteers. And when I got on the board in January, it was brought up that we would like to wait and for Micron. And then we decided to wait longer and more and longer and until we found out Micron was coming a few weeks ago. But with that being said, I'd like to ask the board to consider a professional service to do this comprehensive plan. Given the totality of this project that's going in, it would be nice to have a good, solid plan. Okay, whether we adopt it or not, it would be a plan that goes in place that we have for our planning board to follow, our town board to look at. And the people who offered their services up would be also part of this program. I think in our RFP, if I'm not mistaken, the public would be involved in some of this stuff. The planning board would be involved in this stuff. The town board would be involved in this stuff to make sure that we do this the right way. This town is not, it's going to grow and it's going to grow quick. Okay. I don't have the answers. I'm not a professional engineer. I would like to depend on the professionals to tell us where drainage should, or sewers need to go, where wider roads would have to be placed, maybe some zoning changes or recommendations. But I think it's important that our town board also is involved with the process and with this company. But I'd like to get some input from our town board on this topic.
Well, I mean, are we relying on the engineer's expertise or are we deciding where things want to go? Because it kind of sounds like you said both. I mean, we voted to do this in-house. Other municipalities in this area have done it in-house. Camillus did it in-house. Manlius is doing in-house. Mr. Marizio's done some research. I mean, I
I'll
think,
interrupt you for 1 second.
yeah,
Manlius has a company they're doing.
Sure.
They didn't do it in-house.
well,
But they do have a core bunch of people that are working on it with the professional
But
company.
my question is, you know, at what point are we just paying someone to write something up that we're deciding? And it was, as I was saying, though, I think you said close to half the towns and villages in this county have done it in-house. It's about 50-50. So, I mean, we've already voted on this. I'm not interested in changing it. I mean, I think we delayed or I wasn't part of it, but I think the delay made sense. If a comprehensive plan had been started and we'd spent 100 grand on one, and all that work had been done, and then we found out Micron was coming, and then we know that there's infrastructure changes coming, although we don't know what they are yet, then maybe some of that work would have had to have been repeated, and that would have involved additional expense. I know it took longer for us to get this announcement than any of us wanted, but it is here now. You know, I think there's this perception among the public that a lot of people, I know a lot of people think comprehensive plan is going to stop development. It's not. You know, when people do traffic studies and they grade these intersections that we all hate, and I agree with everybody that the traffic's bad, they don't grade them as being terrible. A lot of comprehensive plans, if you just leave it up to an engineer, are going to recommend more density. I think that the planning board has done a good job. I think that the town board has done a good job. I think that it makes more sense to do it in-house, or at least try, since this is something we've already voted on doing. I think there's a lot of people in this town and a lot of talent, a lot of people that have expertise, and a lot of people who may not have formal education, but who have something to say. And I just think it really makes a lot more sense to, at least since we've already decided that course of action, to start with that before we lay out 6 figures on someone else who's either going to write up what those same residents already decided, or they're going to tell us where something should go. And the supervisor brought up, I promise I'll give you guys a chance. Supervisor brought up, adopting it. I mean, this is a double-edged sword. So if you adopt one of these things, it may give you backup if you want to deny something. But a lot of people are against this apartment complex that we saw tonight, right? If you just trust a third-party engineer to do one of these things, they may decide it's a great place for an apartment complex. And then if the town board votes no, we haven't voted, so I have no idea how it's going to come out. But if they vote no, that gives the developer an opportunity to say, hey, their comprehensive plan said there should be apartments there. If they voted no, I'm going to court to try to overturn their decision. That gives them a much better chance of winning. So if you get one of these things and you adopt it, it could help you or it could hurt you. So I think there's a lot of moving parts here. I'm not denying the fact that we may need one. I just don't know that we need to spend 6 figures to have someone else do it. Not when we have a large amount of materials available for reference, not when we have people that are ready and willing to serve in this committee, and not when other municipalities have followed the same path.
And we have 4 quotes from a year and a half ago that were from 60,000 to 80,000, I think it was.
And as we discussed at the time, those are our town attorney said we should expect them to go higher because those are not all inclusive, and people always come back and say, oh, I need more. This costs more, that costs more. Not to mention, we all know the inflation is, they tell us it's around 9% since then, but we all know it's more. Anyone who goes and buys their own groceries knows it's more. So obviously the cost is going to be higher than it was 16 or whatever months ago it was when the RFP went out. So
would you like to
my
say a
position
few
on it.
words, Kate, please?
Okay, just so we're all on the same page, that the RFPs went out last year. Thank you, Judy. It was nice. 4 came in, we didn't act on it, which I thought was a good move because everyone was waiting on what was going to happen at White Pines. But now that Micron is coming, we all recognize we need to do something. So I did take the opportunity to read all of those comprehensive. I don't know if everybody's gotten a chance to read those proposals that came in from 4 companies. And I would say they were all good. Some were a little better, but what the first thing that all of them, the way it starts out is public input. It starts out with a lot of public participation, public input, and then a steering committee is formed. So yes, public participation would come. What I think impressed me, first of all, people keep saying engineers, it's really more planners, people in certified planning, which, it's a specific skill set. And I know we have very talented people in volunteers that will help, but there is a lot of work that goes to it. And I don't know if it's fair to expect that. And do we have the resources? There's all these graphics that need to be done. Do we have the computer software, the printers, so there's just a lot of stuff that we don't have the capability in-house at the town to do that, maybe working with stuff, but you're consulting with census there's a whole bunch of things. It's coordinating with the county. It's a huge undertaking. So my recommendation would be to go professional, and I would love for all of us to assist them, but I think we have this chance to look at Micron as maybe a chance to reinvent Cicero a little bit. I mean, what's our biggest criticism been for all these years is Cicero doesn't plan, Cicero, nobody thinks this, everybody's got a lot of criticism. So I just think it's a big responsibility to take on. So that's my opinion. I respect everybody's, wanting to save money, I agree with you, even though the proposals, RFPs came in from like 49,000 to 73. We might ask, hey, can you do this? And then it's going to add up. So I think it's a real cost to say, hey, maybe 6 figures, because it involves code, rewriting some code stuff. They make recommendations, and how do we make all that happen? So I just think it's an opportunity for Cicero. We're going to be the ones in the limelight. I'd feel more comfortable having a professional helping us, or at least maybe everybody read the proposals and see what everybody has offered and see, do we think we can provide that in-house? I don't know. So, I would definitely want to help, but I think everybody's really very busy. It's a fun thing to be involved in, an exciting thing. So, I think we would have a lot of good volunteers. But anyways, I just think there might be good ideas out there that we need to listen to people's good ideas. So that's all. That was my 2 cents.
Steve, do you want to speak on behalf of it?
I would just say yes. When we talked about this last year, I thought it was not a bad idea, actually a good idea, especially waiting until we knew what was happening at White Pines. Now we do. We do have a comprehensive plan from 2006 that there's a basis for that would be, I think even if we didn't have Micron, we should be looking at updating. You're have an opportunity to look at the goals and the objectives for the town going forward with that development that's going on, and see what improvements need to be made, or land use problems that we have already that can be addressed.
It seems to me that I did read through all those. I did it last year. I went through a bunch of them again. The company that's chosen may write the plan, but we approve it. We go along with we either go along with what they're saying, or we say, no, we don't like that. We don't want that there. We don't think that's a good idea. And they may try to convince us that that's the way to go, but we're not just taking their word for it. It requires a lot of thought between the public that wants to help. And there were a lot of very nice people who wanted to help. But it's not just doing what they say. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that we have a huge say in what this plan is going to come out as.
And if that was the impression that I gave, I apologize. I'm just saying at some point, we're looking at what we're talking about, respecting what these professional planners, thank you, as in precise, saying versus what the residents say. And at some point, it becomes more one than the other. But we have a comprehensive plan, which I think pretty much every supervisor since then has ignored, and not really, or every town board has ignored. No one really followed it. It wanted to set a center of town that didn't exist, still doesn't exist. And we spent a lot of money on that in 2006. So I'm a little skeptical. And knowing that other towns such as Camillus, which has developed pretty well and has pretty good development out there, I'd like to have a movie tavern around here and a Costco. And they did it in-house. Does this capability exist? Probably, but I don't know if we have it here in the town hall, but I don't know what kind of resources we have available for some of the things you're talking about, which are all good points. So
can I ask our planning board chairman, if we did come up with a comprehensive plan, we had a professional service come in, do you recommend a professional service or having it done without a professional service? Do you have time to put this together? There's a lot of questions involved here. And would this help the planning board have a better direction of where things may want to go, or give the planning board a better to show a better way of helping you guide your way through the process?
Yeah,
Should I say?
first of all, the discussion's really healthy, and I think everybody agrees that we need that comprehensive study done. the planning board is kind of an administrative body. We do what you all put in place. You do the zoning. We do site plan based on that zoning. We get involved with parking and circulation and landscaping and that kind of thing. But if something is approved with a, a certain zoning, then our hands are kind of tied relative to that. And John's right. We did spend a lot of money back in 2006 on that comprehensive study. I don't even think the town approved it. I think they accepted it or something strange. I know this, when the planning board goes through just a little site plan, we rely heavily on our engineer and our council for doing that technical stuff that, we're just rodeo clowns, they help us with the technical stuff. I love the fact that we're talking about trying to save money. That's a great thing right now. But I agree with Kate. I don't know if our volunteers, I've been doing this for, I'm not going to say how many years. I couldn't come up with the comprehensive study plan. I kind of think we do need the professional help. To what extent, I would leave that to you folks, but I think it's important. I think it's very important. Another example I was thinking about is, we always, on a larger project, we require a traffic study, right? And I've heard Mike, sitting on the planning board, he's got both perspectives. And the traffic study always comes back insignificant impact. So when I moved here in 1963 to what I look at today, there's been a significant impact, but all those little projects were insignificant. So we have to look at the big picture. We've got the microchip plant coming. We have the Lakeshore project coming. We're being asked to maybe get some more residential in here. We have to look at the big picture long-term and how it's going to affect the town. And I think that the conversation of getting this study in place and how it happens is a great conversation.
Thanks, Mark.
Welcome.
And I'll just comment a little bit what you said about we're getting people who want to build homes here. Okay. I think Cicero has been on a short end of the stick in regards to commercial building, restaurants, buildings. And we're asked to be putting homes here or apartments here when the town of Clay, just on the other side of the border, is going to prosper and gain traction on more commercial property. And we want to try to keep our taxes level. We know they'll never go down, but we want to keep our taxes level. So we want some way or another to find a way to get commercial business in the town of Cicero to keep the taxes at a level pace, instead of taking all the business and throwing it over to Clay, which they have restaurants and businesses down there, and Cicero gets more houses.
If I could just, if you don't mind me tacking onto that, Mr. Bacassi, leaning forward, can I make one comment on that? And I'll know you remember because you were on the board with me back when I first got on in 2016. Do you remember spending like 4 months talking over and over and over again about rezoning Route 11 all the way north to the county line?
I do.
In commercial because of that racetrack that was never going to come. And we did rezone just about all of Route 11 north commercial, except for a few places that opted out. So fortunately, we already have commercial, general commercial all the way up Route 11 to the county line, which is right by the Micron plant, including, I think, the exit that they bought some land that they can put on Route 11. So, I mean, fortunately, that's perfect. I mean, granted that racetrack that we all heard so much about never happened, but happy accidents, we've already got commercial zoned all around there. So I don't think we need to spend $100,000 to make that happen, but that's.
So I was just making a point about residential coming here instead of
And
commercial.
I do agree. I'd like to see more, and I'd like to see some sit down restaurants instead of just always getting fast food. I like Chick-fil-A,
and with
but
all the calls we get every day that this one wants to put more apartments behind this place and we want to put housing in this place and this place. I've heard nothing of a commercial
How is it?
calling yet.
Sorry to jump in.
No, go ahead.
I have to agree with John on this one. We just going back to last year, and the people of the town of Cicero, they need to have the opportunity to dictate. I don't want that control to leave the town of Cicero. I don't. The residents, we have over 30 some odd thousand people here. I believe everyone's being very short-sighted at the comments about experts. I'm pretty sure we have experts that live in the town of Cicero that'd be more than happy to do this. When we solicited for people to help out last year, We had over 20, 28, 26 people, I think, that said yes. And we cut it off because people were asking so much to volunteer and step up. So we owe it to do this to try to save as much money as we can. And I know it can be done right. I have to agree with John Carp in this one. I have to. So.
I think we got to look at the big picture and not just look at the residents of the town. The residents and those people who signed up to help, those people would be instrumental in helping along with other people in the community. This way, we won't have to cut it off at 26. We could allow 30, 40, or even 1,000 people to give their input.
You also want to consider these planners are always learning. There's always continuing education. They're always learning what's new, what's coming up, what else needs to be done. I don't know that anyone else is going to have that expertise, but over and above that, what I wanted to comment on is we didn't have $100,000 to put in the budget when Judy got those proposals. We just didn't have it. And we have ARPA funds, and we've been using ARPA funds to buy, police cars or to pave or to do all these things. It's a perfect opportunity. It's a one-shot deal to take money from the ARPA funds to fund a comprehensive plan done by professional planners with as much input as possible from all the people who had offered to help. Because if you go back through those proposals, it's constant input from the public. It's not just what they say, it's constant input. It's meetings, it's storyboards. The planning board members have asked me several times about a comprehensive plan, how it would help them. It would give them more guidance. Again, that's just my thoughts. We do have the money in the ARPA funds that we've again been spending. So I don't know when we're going to have another opportunity like that to be able to just do this and get it done.
Anyone else?
Well, I still don't think we know what's coming with Micron. They've announced the building. We haven't heard anything from the county or the state on what that's going to do to the town. We know they're developing something. I know working with Mike, we've tried to get answers. We still haven't heard anything or been involved in any sort of conversation on what that's going to look like. I fully agree with the supervisor that we need a comprehensive plan. We're one of the I've done a lot of research on this the past couple of weeks, and we are one of the only towns in the county that does not have one. Interestingly enough, Clay also doesn't have one that I could find. I've read every comprehensive plan from every town that I could find in the county that's had one. And it would be my take to try to use the resources that we can find in those existing documents to cater it to what we need, and then look outside if we run into a roadblock after we've gone through and collaborated with a committee of people. I'm of the mind that we should attempt to do what I wasn't on the board at the time that it was voted on, to do something in-house, see what we can come up with by picking apart pieces from different comprehensive plans. Skinny Atlas's plan is 30 pages, Marcellus's is 200. So I mean, there's a wide range of what people are able to do. Some of them are done professionally, some of them aren't, they're done in-house. All of them have been adopted, and I mean, those towns are thriving. I would prefer to try to do something in-house before we look at doing something outside and spending the money. I mean, we haven't even tried.
So if we decide to go in-house to do this project, you will be chairman of the project.
But
I'm just asking.
Really
I'm
an
just
appropriate
asking.
question to ask. I mean,
Well-
we haven't even determined the composition of
Well,
we never did.
But this is because this is above and beyond my head and anybody who really sits on this board's head, that this
Mike,
is huge.
Mike,
I don't
Mike.
listen, I don't mean it in disrespect. Okay.
It is,
I
you
don't
mean it disrespectfully, but it is disrespectful.
I-
The people of the town of Cicero know what the problems are in this town. Traffic is the big one, right? And we want more commercial. I don't need an expert planner to tell me
Okay.
that.
Okay. End of discussion, more discussion.
I mean, do you want to bring a resolution? We already voted on something. You would need to bring another resolution to do something different. Those
Well,
RFPs are no good anymore, right? Because they're 16 months old.
We reached out just to see if people would still be interested. Weren't awarding, just asking the question, and 2 have come back and said, yes, they would.
At the same price.
1 at the same price, 1 up just a few $1,000s. I mean, salaries have extremely bumped in
yeah,
this,
no
in this
question.
field. Haven't heard back from the 2 higher priced ones.
If
So
that's the case, you probably would need to do a new RFP anyway.
I don't
If you're not
think
going to
we
hear
would-
back from, if you're not going to hear back from them, I mean,
I think I called Robert. We talked about this. It's professional services. So with professional services, we could actually just say, hey, we want to go with this person. But they solicited 10, got back 4. We read all 4, reached out to all 4. And I think it's really on their workload, whether they want, whether they can. But there's 2 that are willing right now that would take it. And stuff. And I just want to throw in one point, and I don't mean to be controversial, but it's an open conversation. One thing I do think everybody in the town understands a lot of stuff, but I think sometimes also to get a broader picture, because we all represent our own interests. Hey, I live right here and I don't want this right there. And, so sometimes we have to think for the greater good of the whole town and not one specific household or, one street, whatever, because I mean, development is coming. That was just a thought of why sometimes having someone up here who has no vested interest, but also to Nancy's point, everything, it starts out with it's all fed by public input and a steering committee that works along with it. So it's not a planner. I think they're just making recommendations, and it's whether the steering committee accepts those recommendations or not. But if we do it in-house, I would suggest that it's a very diverse group. So you're representing all age groups, both sexes, people from all walks of life, because everybody kind of thinks the same when you're in your homogeneous, people. So that's just my.
I mean, I think the board's voted on this already. If you want to do something different, you can make a motion and see how the votes come out. But we've already decided this. We decided it a year ago.
Okay, so if you decided this a year ago, we'll leave it the way it is. I won't make a motion.
All right. We all on this are,
So when we decide we're going to do this, like you decided a year ago, who's going to chair this committee and how's this committee going to go? I mean, for me, I want to know. I think
that wasn't part of the resolution. And I think that the whole thing kind of had a pause pressed on it because I think most of us that were up there agreed that we needed to wait and see what happened. Now we all expected an answer sooner.
According to last year's minutes, we did not select a chair.
well,
We changed the composition of the committee, which obviously my argument, it's not big enough. It was comprised of 4 residents of the town, 2 board members, and then planning board chair, and then a representative from zoning and planning, which obviously the makeup needs to change.
okay, then I'll take it back. I'll make a motion to rescind last year's decision and have a new resolution
For what?
to have a professional service do our comprehensive.
Oh, so
plan.
you want to I just want to clarify.
Yes,
You want to change last year's resolution to just go ahead.
with a professional service, correct?
Okay.
I'll second it so we can vote on it.
Okay, all in favor?
Well, can we do a roll
Oh,
call?
Go ahead, Trace, do a roll call.
No.
No.
Counselor White,
Yes.
Counselor Bacallo,
No.
Supervisor Aragano.
Yes,
And I'd like to make a motion. I move adoption of resolution reaffirming the vote of last September by the town board to form a comprehensive plan committee and create a comprehensive plan with that in-house committee.
Second. Are we going to set like a
Go ahead.
date on when we?
With the composition of that, well, we got to solicit volunteers, but at least the overall composition of that committee in terms of committee structure, organizational structure to be determined by vote of the town board no later than the December 14th, 2022 meeting.
Second.
go ahead, Trace.
Counselor Carr.
Yes.
Counselor Maurizio.
Yes.
Counselor White,
No.
Counselor Bacallo,
Aye.
and Supervisor Aragano.
No, Okay, anything else? Discussion? No, open the public input. Who wants to come on up? How are you tonight?
Good, thank you.
Your name and
Thank you. My
address.
name is Elsa Lamana. I'm from Sutton Drive. And all I want to know is how can I volunteer? Number one. Second, on some sort of helping Cicero from an old lady who has lived 40 years in here, a happy life. And the other advice to the younger generations is that don't compare so much to other communities. We know Camillus, we know Elbridge, but what do we have in hand? That's my advice to you. What do we have in hand? What's the percentage of water in Cicero, which is high, marsh? We even have a special rattlesnake only to Cicero. Okay, so with this, we have to have a percentage. What is the available land that we can develop for the future versus what do we have as nature that has given us? I only can say I'm a bird watcher. Perhaps I should have come to the meetings instead of watching my birds. But in 40 years, a lot of birds are gone from Cicero. Okay? So that means this is the canary in the coal mine. Don't forget nature. Okay? But that percentage of land that we have has to be studied. And I think you people are the intelligent ones. You're going to do it. I have faith. And if you need my advice, I'm always ready. Okay? Tracy, you can put my name in there.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm not sure how to, Don Snyder, Legionnaire Drive, I'm not sure how to start my presentation. I'm really sorry that we just did what we did. We didn't think about it. We didn't go talk about it. We didn't ask anybody in the public what they thought we ought to be doing. But if I need to go to court, I'm going to bring Mr. Karp with me. Why? Because he's a lawyer. He is, at that point, would be a coach for that particular situation. If I needed some computer stuff done, I'd go to these other two people that know all about computers and could help me get to my ultimate solution to the problem I have. I don't know of a basketball team, football team, any kind of a team that doesn't have a coach. The coach is not necessarily the best person to teach someone how to hit or kick or punt, whatever they're doing. But they have the administrative ability to bring the pieces together that need to be together to get the end game, which is to win those games. We're talking about the future of Cicero. We know that we're going to be one whale of a mess when we see Micron come to us, because we know right off the bat, there is definitely going to be a road change from the Euclid Hotel to at least Route 81, right through our town. That's just one of the many things that are going to be involved. A senior planner or a planner that is in fact does this for a living, I think can be very helpful in helping us look at the pieces. For example, one of the pieces in long-range planning that you also involve the public with is you tell them how our tax structure is based, and how, if, let's say, everybody says, I don't want any doggone big box stores, I don't, and you have to educate them to let them know that that is where the income comes to the town to be able to buy a new fire truck or to buy another truck for the highway. If we think that a lot of houses and streets are going to get us a big tax increase, I don't think so. I think we found that most developments for housing end up breaking even or maybe even costs us a little bit of money. So we got to look at that. So I think you misstepped. I think we need an immediate reaction, meaning we need to do this in the next 6 to 8 months. We need a plan, and we need to have. I don't want to be egotistical, but I, for over 30 years, have been involved in planning, in construction. In fact, one of our little things that Don and I did with Chris is we built a new highway garage. But I don't think that that makes me smart enough or educated enough to know the pieces and steps that need to be taken to do a master plan for the town of Cicero. I think if we have 2 people that have said they would, if they were good, if you all would approve them, and if they're good, and they said they would still do what we need to have done, we ought to do that. I mean, there is nobody in our town that is smart enough and has enough time to do what we would expect someone that we pay money to direct the planning process for a comprehensive plan. I'm sorry, it just.
Ray Shaders, 7286 Bridgeport Monroe Road. I've been in business, I've been in meetings for 50 years. And if you have more than 2 people, you never get anything accomplished. So you could have 500 people in the town give you suggestions, but there's only, other than 2 people that agree, the rest of them would only say that there's too much traffic. That's the only thing you would get out of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Schrader. Anyone else?
Personally, I think that you guys, Tim Murphy, Knoll Road, I think the idea of doing it in-house is an excellent idea. What I would do is have a scope of interests, write up a huge proposal, then hire the professionals to review it. You guys could have that done in-house and get half of the stuff done before these pencil paper pushing paper guys show up and charge you $60,000, $80,000 and then keep raising the bill. You know what's going on here. You know it's traffic, wetlands. You know the deal. You sit here every week and hear it. So write it up. Give a scope of ideas and a proposal. That's what we really need here, because this town's going to suffer when the micron comes in. You know, wait till the county comes in with the eminent domain. Oh boy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? No? We'll close the meeting. 8:02. Make a motion.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.